let's talk about Creature Commandos. So here are my thoughts on Creature Commandos. I think it's a great show, great start to the DCU. And by the way, there are spoilers in this video, so do not worry if you haven't seen it. So I wanted to give you a spoiler warning. So like my video and leave and then watch it. So I wanted to give you a warning so you know that there's spoilers. Now, with that being said, what are my thoughts on Creature Commandos? It's a solid show. It's a really solid show. I enjoy it. I think it's a decent start to James Gunn's DCU. However, there are problems with it. And I'll get to the bad stuff at the very end of the video with the major spoilers. But overall, I really enjoyed this show. So let's talk about the plot/premise. So I was digging the show's plot and premise because the show begins with the Creature Commands. They're like the Suicide Squad, but just monsters. And the Creature Commandos are like, hey, we're going to stop this Amazonian villain. She wants to take over Themyscira, and she wants to take over this land. And you're interested in that because you're like, wow, why does she want to take it over and take out the princess? And the princess is the focal point of the show. And then we get some great episodes in between before the plot twist, where it's revealed that the princess might be evil. Ooh. But Rick Flag Sr. has emotional ties to the princess because he hooked up with her, and the Creature Commands get sent out to kill the princess. And Rick Flag Sr. is like, no, I don't want the princess to die. I like her. She's great. Oh, I'm into her. Stop. Don't do it. Which I find weird with that relationship, but we'll get to that later. And then that kicks off the rest of the show. So now this is where we really get into spoilers. Let's start off with my favorite characters. So I'm going to talk about Weasel. I really enjoyed Weasel, thought his tragic backstory with the kids was emotional, makes that scene in the Suicide Squad more emotional and more impactful because Rick Flag said, oh no, he just killed 27 kids. But we know the truth, he didn't. He was trying to save them from this fire. It was a big misunderstanding. This guy with a gun thought Weasel was a monster, which he was just an old man who was scared. And it's sad. It's sad because you feel for like Weasel in this because he's just misunderstood. And I like how he's supposed to be the trope of the imaginary friend that all the kids love. But he's the Weasel. He's not appealing. He's not flattering. He looks weird. He's a weird looking dude. You see the Weasel in real life. You see a giant Weasel. You would be scared too. But that's what I like about the shows. It shows like what is on the inside is what counts. And I know that's cliche, but like it shows that on the inside, Weasel's a kind, compassionate being who isn't smart, but Weasel is kind and empathetic and wholesome in a weird way. Not a monster, but they don't get that. The world won't ever get that Weasel's not a monster. And I like how they use that character and show his complexity. I love the Weasel. I do. I did love Dr. Phosphorus. Great backstory. Him becoming the villain was one of those villain origins where I'm like, I could low-key root for this guy as the villain. That dance sequence where he's popping off, doing all the crazy stuff, becoming a crime boss because the crime boss killed his wife and kid and then said, you know, we're taking over your project and we're going to fake your death and turn you into a monster without meaning to, was amazing. Phosphorus, his backstory, amazing. His revenge story, amazingly shot. It was just very fantastic to see just this character evolution of this like kind of down on his luck scientist who's trying to do good get to become a villain and kind of take things over from Rupert Thorne. That is who the mob boss's name is. I just remembered Rupert Thorne. Big deal in the Batman comics. Also, I love the Batman cameo in that episode with him. The other backstories I really liked was Nina's. She was a good character. I do wish that they gave her backstory earlier, but the fact that Gunn gave it before she died was very sad. Very, very sad. And all I gotta say is the fact that he pulled it off and did it was insane. By like, wow, that was insane. And it was just so sad to know the truth that Nina wanted just to have a normal life, and she was never a monster. It was just people being mean to her. And I like that theme about if monsters existed, people wouldn't be nice to them. They wouldn't be empathetic of them, because people can be taught to hate things that they don't understand. And as the show goes on, the more we understand these creature commandos, we understand their human side, their emotional their emotional side, their feelings. We understand who they are. We start to sympathize and empathize with these characters, especially the bride. The bride starts out cynical, mean, and cold-hearted because she's just been running away from a stalker for 200 years, I would say. And the stalker is just a creepy loser. We'll get to him later. But she slowly just grows jaded and cynical of the world. She knows she's a monster. She knows she's just a bunch of dead body parts made to be a bride. Her only purpose was to make Frankenstein happy. But she was never satisfied, and she was treated terribly by both those men in her life, because the man she falls for was low-key grooming her and just a creep. And I like how the story shows nuance with the bride's character, showing that she fell in love with someone who was a manipulator and a creep. But I kind of feel like when we go back to that house, we notice that the scientist is kind of like seen as like disgusting, because she looks and notices he has a family and stuff, and she didn't like that. And I think that's a cool little moment that the show adds, showing like, yes, this guy is not good either. And I like that Gunn's playing with morality in this new DC universe. And then we got another character I liked, Frankenstein, the creepy stalker. Hold on, let me explain. I don't approve of the stalking. I think it's creepy. I think he's a weirdo. He's a weirdo. But he's one of those weirdo characters who you can't help but laugh at. He's kind of like an Eric Cartman. No, he's not Eric Cartman, but kind of. Like, he's a character that you know is a piece of garbage and sucks. But there is something likable about him. There is something charismatic. There's something endearing at times. But at the end of the day, you got to remember, he's a psycho. He unalives innocent people every day. Like, just to get to the bride. And he's obsessed with her. He literally has no other purpose but just to be obsessed with her, because he's not capable of growing as a person. And you do want Frankenstein to grow and change. You do want him to have a redemption arc, until you got to remember, he's been doing this for 200 years. He's been doing this for 200 years, and that's the part that hurts, is you got to remind yourself. He's a creepy stalker weirdo. But unlike the incels from the beginning of the show, who are outwardly just disgusting and unlikable and uncharismatic, this guy is likable and has some charisma and some likability. He has that like dumb guy, like, oh, well, I mean well, I don't know, this, and this. And he has some naivety, but he's not an innocent person. He's a terrible person. And the fact that David Harbour is able to make me sympathize with him at times and then make me go, okay, you're a piece of garbage, is amazing. Like, bravo, James Gunn, bravo, David Harbour, for making such a complicated character. Also, when the bride just shot him, I was like, valid. Like, I was sad, but I wasn't. I was like laughing. I'm like, yeah, teach the stalker a lesson. He's never going to get it, but try. So let's get to the part of the show I do not like. That being the princess and Rick Flag's whole dynamic. Rick Flag Sr., I was hyped for, because I love the OG Rick Flag from the first two Suicide Squads. Thought Rick Flag was, yeah, kind of bland, but the OG Rick Flag was meant to be kind of the everyman. He's meant to be the good guy. He's the objectively good character in the first two Suicide Squad movies. The objectively moral character in those movies, meaning that he doesn't start out a cynical person. He just wants to do what's right for his country and what's right by others. And even his dad admits that Rick Flag Jr. was better. But Rick Flag Sr. simping for the princess, being taken advantage by the princess. Like, yeah, she seduces, bro. And then because he gets seduced, he literally blows their mission. And I'm like, bro, what the heck? You're supposed to be like DC's Nick Fury and you're doing this crap? Like, what the heck, bro? What's wrong with you? What are you thinking? Although he's played spectacularly, the voice acting's great, and I do want to see more of his character, I feel like he was wasted because by the time he's out of the show, I didn't miss him. I was just like, what's going to happen to the creature commands? How are they going to take down the princess? Is the princess even evil? And then when we find out the truth about the princess being evil the whole time, it's kind of too little too late. Because I kind of figured she was evil. But the show kept trying to throw red herrings, throw wrenches in the way to see if she's evil or not. And I feel like they kept trying to elongate the twist. I wish they gave us the twist early so we can enjoy the princess's like kind of downfall better. I did find her death satisfying, and I do think her death being just kind of quick, painless, non-glorious, not able to fill the princess's ego was perfect. I thought it was beautiful. A great callback to how she killed Nina, how she unalived Nina, took out Nina. But, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sound like I hate the show. It's just this one plot point I can't stand. But why did the princess have to do this? Like, what was her point in doing this? Like, I don't know what the princess's point was. Why does she care about Kyrgyzstan? I think that's what it's called. Kyrgyzstan? Like, why? Why did she want to invade Themyscira? Did she want to invade Themyscira? What would have happened? We see that flashback once, and it was epic. But I don't know. I do love this show. I thought it was great, but that one plot point bumps it down a lot. Bumps it down a lot. I may sound like I'm overthinking this, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. Like, that ending wasn't my cup of tea. But the whole show was great. So what's my final rating? I give Creature Commandos an 8 out of 10. And if you've watched this video and you want to see more content on my YouTube, on my TikTok, on my Instagram, I'll have those links in the bio, but I'll very much appreciate everything you do, everything you watch, everything you see in this video. Thank you for watching.